So today we're continuing work on our four-wheel drive, 1500 horsepower turbo big block Chevy drag truck chassis. It's not a truck just yet because we have to find a truck to put this underneath. Maybe the other truck, maybe something different. But last time you guys saw we got a rear end in place. This is a 14-bolt semi-floater from Got Torque Differential. This won't work as a roller right now because there's nothing holding the axle into the housing. You can see it just kind of pulls right out. We got to get our backing plate on here. A little bit of custom work to do that, and then that'll actually be held into place. And then once we get that taken care of, I'll probably bolt the back tires on, and then I need to get something fabricated up front for our motor mount, because right now we've got a 2x4 block holding the passenger side in place, which is not going to fly in the long run. So a little bit more welding and cutting and grinding, and then we'll do something else. So we got the stock disc brake backing plates, and we're gonna have to do a little bit of work to modify these to get them to work with the ends that are on the 14 bolt. You can use that axle with the 15-inch disc brake conversion like I have on the ugly truck right now, or we can use it with our stock brakes. I am planning on running 17-inch wheels all the way around. I do like the bigger stock brakes instead of the smaller 1320 15-inch wheel conversion, which that works great, but like I said, I got some really good power stop rear brakes that'll fit a 17, so we just gotta do a little bit of modifying here. We gotta grind these bosses down. We've gotta pull the parking brake off, so let's just get to it. Oh, simple. And then from here, basically we just gotta grind those four little bosses and those letters off so that retainer just sits flat on the outside of that. So more grinding. Now I probably ought to put my parking brake assembly back in place, just kind of a good extra safety measure, but I don't use it that often. But for safety, it probably should be in there. All right, one down, one to go, and then we'll actually get these painted up, because this is one thing I can finally put on like permanently, and it will not have to come back off. So this is not going to be like the most award-winning paint job on the planet, but I just figured because this is like the final assembly, I'll at least get a little bit of paint on these. I'm actually going to use that Steal It coating, so it's kind of paint, kind of something else, but I used it before on the last axle and I really like the look of it, and it's durable. And this is just like a cheap Duplicolor wax and grease remover. I sprayed these with brake clean after I got them out of the parts washer. I figured this will just be a good second layer of defense to make sure the paint sticks. Backing plates are sort of kind of dry, so all we gotta do now is yank these axles out. Once again, no C-clip, and then we'll just slide the backing plates through. Caliper goes to the front. Look at this little retainer plate here. There's a little spacer right behind that. That kind of sandwiches against the bearing and pushes it in. And then it all goes together with the backing plate in there. Well, the other good thing about this axle, we have screw-in wheel studs, which I think is a requirement for a certain ET or mile an hour. And C-clip eliminators, that's what this whole bearing end's about. That's also required at, I forget what it is, maybe it's like an 1150 or faster, 11 second or faster maybe. Wrong caliber. I'll be back. Now if the wheels will just fit, I think we'll be in business. All right, so these are factory brakes from a, I think 2011-ish Suburban. So it's a pretty big rotor. And these are 17-inch wheels here from like an 02 Escalade. I don't know if they'll work together. Let's find out. Yeah, they'll work nice. Now the lug nuts that you're supposed to run with an extended stud like this are usually pretty long. These are just like the first thing I found at O'Reilly's today. So this will not be like the final lug nut. But again, mock-up, you know, name of the game. The bad part about these lug studs, I can't run my pretty Escalade center caps. All right guys, future me, I just got done editing everything you just saw and I realized I didn't really explain the importance of the C-clip eliminator in this axle that we've got here. See, a C-clip design axle is actually not allowed past a certain ET or mile an hour. I don't know what the cutoff is. Maybe I'll look it up and I'll put it on the bottom of the screen here. But a C-clip style axle is kind of dangerous because let's say you do a launch or you're going down track and the axle shaft twists and snaps. Well, technically the only thing holding your wheel and the axle from pulling out of the housing is that little C-clip in the middle. So if the axle breaks, you're kind of done for. And yeah, if you have disc brakes, The caliper sort of kind of would hold things in, but that's not what you want to rely on. Got Torque Differential, the people who built this entire axle assembly, also will sell you a C-clip eliminator kit for your existing 10 bolt or your 14 bolt. So if you don't want to buy the whole thing, you can easily buy their conversion and adapt your axle to get rid of the C-clips, which make it much, much safer in the long run. This one actually has the housing end welded on, so there's no adapter block like you can buy if you want to do this at home. But anyway, regardless of which choice you make or which route you go, the C-clip eliminators are a really important safety thing. So that's one of the reasons why I went with this particular axle. And of course, on top of that, there's just the strength. This is a 9.5-inch ring gear. It's much bigger, much beefier. Yeah, it's a little bit heavier, but this whole truck's going to be heavy. We're producing a ton of torque, so it's kind of a safety thing. So anyway, yeah, C-clip eliminators explained in a nutshell, maybe. All right, time to figure out this motor mount situation. The 8.1, weirdly enough, uses the same mount position relative on the driver's side that like an LS would. On the passenger side though, this side of the motor is ahead by approximately 2 to 3 inches, so you can see how this guy here doesn't line up with the bracket that goes down here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this part here that normally bolts onto the frame like that. I'm going to cut the tabs off. I'm going to slide it ahead basically so this is going to line up with, of course, the other missing piece of the mount through there. But that's what we're going to do to get our motor bolted in. So more or less, what I'm going to do, so I can clean the paint off, but that goes through there, that goes through there. Attach this guy on the end like that. Then all I gotta do is cut whatever that is, like say a 3.5-inch wide strip that extends frontward. And then I can set this on sort of kind of like so. Of course, the other half of the mount is missing the urethane right now, but kind of gets located about like that. It's amazing how many carpentry tools you use in a car shop. All right, for 2 videos in a row, I've used an old adage, so the one today is measure twice, cut once. All right, so we got our plate pretty much done. We get our front and back bolted to the chassis, so now all we got to do is weld the 3 together, something like that. All right, so we have the first half of our frame bracket fully welded, and now I'm just going to kind of tighten it in place. And then the next thing I got to figure out is how to get our upper half of the mount to fit. Now I actually added a little bit of material here, so it's probably going to be a little bit too tall right now, but that's okay. I left just enough I could trim kind of the frame out. So let's see how it works out. So yeah, definitely a little bit tall, but all I got to do is kind of shorten that down just a little bit. A little bit long on this side too. I can trim it, but that's kind of how it's going to work. All right, so we got the driver's side, no, passenger side. We have the passenger side already kind of to weld together, but before we do that, I want to get the engine in its new position, and I just got in my new motor mounts. If you remember from when we first stuck the big block into the frame, it sat a little bit high. It made for a weird driveline angle. And Richard from Atomic Fab reached out and said, hey, guess what? I've got some cool new mounts for you, and here they are. This is going to replace his existing mount, and I think he'll offer these for sale actually, but these will drop the motor by exactly 1 inch. I think he designed them first because he had a guy who was building like a bag and body dropped truck or something where it needed more clearance up here on the firewall. But for me, this is going to work out perfectly because I can get the big block mounted lower. So do me a favor, guys, if you need anything for your Silverado, your GMT 800 or whatever, check out Atomic Fab. He makes some really cool stuff. He even, I put in a special request. I asked for these to be a little bit thicker than usual just because we got the big block and a lot of torque. So he delivered, guys. Check him out. So let me just get this swapped out, then we'll hop back over there and get everything kind of finalized and welded in place. You know what this means? If I, for some weird reason, decided to keep the ugly truck as it is and find a new truck to put this chassis underneath, is now I have more motor mounts for the existing truck. I think it's a sign. So where I left off with this lower mount, I think I needed to do some trimming with the tall mounts in there. Probably will have to do it with a short mount, but let's find out. Yeah, I cut that at a little bit of a funky angle, so I gotta just, or if I did that, I gotta kind of cut it straight. Also, for what it's worth, got an angle finder on here, angle finder on the frame, just making sure the engine is level because depending on what we do here, could affect it. Pretty much what we want, isn't it? Just take some final measurements, make sure the motor's centered and level, and we're good to go. All right, so basically this is just kind of like rough draft. I have a little extra here, we'll chop that off. And then as you can see from this side, this whole shape here isn't super strong, but I can actually plate this end in and that'll like tie the whole thing together. And then on the back, I think I want to do something similar, just kind of plate that in. Maybe overkill, maybe just right. But that's kind of that's the swap mount. That's warm. Just a little bit warm. Basically what I'm going to do is just get this guy tacked on like it is. I'm going to build a filler plate now for the back here, get that all tacked together, and then triple check that it still fits on the frame and then finish weld everything together. This, like I said, it's probably like really overkill, but what the heck, we've come this far. Seems like a perfect time to eat lunch, doesn't it? One more thing. Now it's done. All right, so we got the motor mounts done. The engine is sitting permanently, well, not permanently, but it's sitting in its final position, although things will come back apart for paint. That's one thing I gotta mention is everything that we've done, the control arms, the frame, the suspension, like it's all gonna get painted or powder coated before it goes together. But anyway, that's the finished product right there. If you want to swap an 8.1 into a half ton, which is essentially what we've done here, you got to take care of the mount on this side in terms of moving it ahead. On the driver's side over here, you don't really have to do a whole lot. If you want to use stock mounts, all you got to do is extend the upper left bolt hole by a little bit. And that's exactly what I did in the ugly truck. Basically, I used a stock LS mount just like this, modified that one bolt hole right there, and everything locates exactly like it should. These are the first set of mounts that Atomic made me. This sits at the stock height, and then he built the engine plate with the hole moved out just a little bit. And that would put the engine in exactly the same position it is with this mount, but I wanted a little bit lower, and so he then built me the drop set, which mine is also a little bit thicker than usual, just, you know, for big block torque or whatever. Actually, the 1-inch drop, though, turned out to be perfect because it lowers the engine. We got the driveline angle now that we want. And it's still not going to hit anything. Like, we've got plenty of room between the oil pan and the cross member. And then also between the oil pan and, it's kind of hard to get my camera in here, but between the oil pan and the front differential, we also have a nice amount of room. So even when the engine moves around a little bit, which with these atomic urethane mounts, it's not going to move much. But we've got adequate clearance, so nothing is going to rub or cut or chafe or, you know, spill oil all over the place. So that's pretty much the deal when it comes to 8.1 swapping your half ton. And that's going to bring this video to an end. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Come back soon for more more welding. I think we're getting closer every single time, but I appreciate you guys hanging in there. This is a process. Basically, we're starting our build from scratch. So it takes a lot of time, and thank you for watching it. I do like that.